Regulatory landscape, trends and impacts across jurisdictions.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shirley Police-Shershen. I'm Head of News at Sigma Group, and it's my pleasure and privilege to moderate today's discussion in the heart of Rome as we explore how shifting gambling regulations and enforcement strategies are redrawing the global market. And who better than the panel I am honored to present to you to have this discussion with. I'll start with John Hagan, Managing Partner at Harris Hagan, widely regarded as a thought leader on British and international gambling law. Thank you, John, for being here. Dr. Aftab Rizvi, CEO at Gaming Associates, renowned regulatory compliance advisor and global standards architect. Thank you as well. Andrew Gelattley, Executive Director at Alderney Gambling Control Commission and a long-time stakeholder in cross-jurisdictional licensing and innovation policy. Let's not give away our ages here, so I'm not giving out any data and numbers, okay? Professor Pieris Hourides, President of the Cyprus Gaming and Casino Supervision Commission, expert in evidence-based policymaking and Mediterranean regulatory development. I'll begin with direct questions to each one of you, and then we'll have more of an open discussion. And please do add your questions, and we'll have them later on. Let's start with the challenge of divergent regulations. This goes to you, John. What are the gambling legislative and regulatory trends in the UK, and how are they influencing operator behavior?
Morning, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here. This is a huge topic that I'm going to address in 2 or 3 minutes of opening remarks. I'm going to deal with 4 key trends. I might talk faster than I usually do, and I'm told that there is a UFC fighter coming to speak after us, and we may be asked to stop at a moment's notice. And I'm not going to argue with him.
No.
Trend 1, the implementation of the gambling review. In December 2020, the government launched a review of the Gambling Act. It was essentially, why'd they do it? It was essentially to ensure that our laws are fit for the digital age. It was to ensure an appropriate balance between consumer freedom on the one hand and protection of the vulnerable on the other hand, and also to ensure an equitable approach between land-based and online gambling. It was the third once-in-a-generation review in my career, and it was motivated probably more by political considerations than legal considerations. We'd seen a proliferation of gambling advertising, we'd seen fixed odds betting terminals, and high-profile enforcement actions, so something had to be done. That was the political view. So how did it finish? Well, it culminated in 2023 with the publication of a white paper, essentially a raft of consumer protection measures. We have seen more prescriptive rules on when online operators have to check on their customers for signs that their losses may be harmful. We've seen maximum stakes on slots. Games have to be safer by design, all sorts of technical standards relating to that. A new statutory levy to raise £100 million for research, education and treatment, and also proposals relating to the modernisation of the casino sector. Progress has been slow but steady, and we're getting there. So we now have laws that are fit for a digital age, and we now have laws that balance consumer choice with protection of consumers. Second trend, regulatory enforcement. At Harris Hagan, we're at the coalface of regulatory enforcement in the UK. And I would say at the outset that gambling operators have raised the standards when it comes to AML and safer gambling enormously, particularly in the last 5 years. We're seeing fewer egregious, serious failures than previously, leaving the Commission freer resource-wise to focus on those big, serious cases. We're seeing the Commission use something called special measures where they put an operator in special measures and put enormous pressure on them, threat of a license review, so that they can get them to move quickly and take some quite dramatic action. What else? We're seeing a more trusting, well, generally speaking, those that have had their licenses suspended or fines issued this week may not think so, but generally we are seeing a more collaborative, open and constructive relationship between operator and regulator. Trend 3, the focus on the illegal market. I was going to say more about this, but now I'm going to cut it really short because I thought the panel before was absolutely excellent. And I'd just ask you to consider some of the things that Matthew Zarb-Cousin was saying. Can you imagine, and I hope there's nobody at Sigma this week that falls into this category, but can you imagine people sitting in a room and deciding, how are we going to attract business? What we're going to do is we're going to focus on people that have a problem with their gambling, and we're going to send them targeted social media advertising. They've already excluded from everything in the UK. We're going to sell our services into them. Do you trust those people to treat you fairly? Do you trust their games? Do you trust them to give you money if you have a big win? Well, of course you don't. And more needs to be done, and I echo Matthew and Kieran's calls for the regulator to take greater action. Industry, for its part, has things it can do. Research, keep pressure on government, point out the damage to tax revenues, do due diligence on their own suppliers, prevent upstream activity of games finding their way into the market through these illegal operators. Fourth trend, final trend, higher taxes are incoming. I don't know how the UK has found UK industry has found itself in this position unfairly, but increases in taxes are coming because it's been linked to industry should be paying for state benefits for families with more than 2 children. How has industry found itself in a direct link in this debate? And it's a salutary lesson to industry that despite already being taxed extremely highly, having a new statutory levy, having now laws that are fit for the digital age, notwithstanding everything that the industry has done to raise standards of AML and safer gambling, it's still being heavily criticized to justify tax raises. Do you want me, Shirley, to pause there? Or?
Yeah, I think this has given us a lot of food for thought. From my end, what I take from this, if you're talking about higher taxes, does that conflict with player protection? Because if players find themselves wanting to be on a regulated market, but then having to pay higher taxes, is that pushing them away? You know, that is something that maybe we can pick up on a bit later on. Pieris, I come to you. Cyprus has emerged as an innovation hub, but also faces unique market access requirements. How is Cyprus balancing growth, player protection, and open competition in its evolving gambling laws?
Yeah, thank you for the invitation, and I'm honored to be here with the distinguished panelists. Cyprus has a unique approach because a couple of years when we decide to have the casino, the land-based casino, we haven't been for the traditional road to have a small shop, but we have an integrated casino resorts.
Yeah.
So that's the issue that we face in Cyprus, so we have to adapt the regulations based on that characteristics. However, the Commission approach, well, the theory says that innovation eats regulation for breakfast. Our approach is about the regulation and innovation is forces that join together for the best of the sustainability, integrity, and accountability. This is the pillars that we have. And what we are looking in Cyprus is to working closely with the operator, because when you have an open dialogue with the main stakeholder and the public, then the public is engaged with your responsible game activities. Then the operator is following the directive, because the law cannot be changed every time, because this is not the situation. We don't want this, because you need to have a stable framework, but a stable framework in a dynamic world, because gaming is a dynamic world. You need adaptability, you need velocity, you need adaptability to the new trends. You have new customers every time. You have customers that they are changing, customers that are coming for €1 to 1 million or whatever. So it's not the same customer. So you have to treat everybody with a unique approach.
Yes.
So what we have in Cyprus and what we believe that is the right approach is to have a common understanding of the benefits for the sustainability, for the economy, also for the operation, also for the entertainment, because let's see that gaming is not only about gaming, it's about entertainment. So that's the approach that we have in Cyprus. That's the approach that we are following in Cyprus to enhance the regulation and allow the operation to operate in a friendly customer environment.
Yeah.
And also to be more proactive on the responsible gaming, because we have self-exclusions and so on, but at the end of the day, if the player don't understand the benefits of every activity, then it's not possible to work. So to summarize that is, you need to work with the main stakeholders unless you want results. If you don't want results and you want to be superior or whatever, then you don't work and collaborate.
Yes, I think this is a very valid point. Open communication. We've seen this also in the UK. With the white paper, there has been a lot of consultation going on. We see it at the MGA in Malta as well, where the regulator is also very open, has with stakeholders. But it's not an easy balance to maintain, for sure.
Yes, the key word here is trust.
Yeah.
When you build trust, then all the parties are following with the natural progress. And you know, when you grow up slowly, then the trust is built on very strong foundations, and that's allow you to introduce new regulations or new framework, and actually works for the benefits of all people.
Exactly.
It's not about one against the other,
Yes.
it's one with the other.
Yes, in parallel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Andrew, as regulatory models diverge, cross-border licensing and offshore frameworks remain contentious. How is the Alderney approach evolving to maintain relevance as a licensing hub, taking into consideration tightening EU scrutiny?
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you for the invitation to be here as well. I really appreciate it. The panel before us spoke about this regulatory divergence, the trend for more offshore licensing jurisdictions that are essentially Johnny-come-lately, recently sort of created. Well, Alderney's been in the regulation of online gambling for 25 years this year. It's one of the first European regulators and a point of supply regulator. And you know, I think a proof that we're still relevant is the fact that we've just been through a Council of Europe Moneyval FATF evaluation of the bailiwick of Guernsey and Alderney, and we were found, you know, our model was found to be extremely capable and with no significant problems whatsoever in our approach to AML CFT regulation. I mean, Alderney, the Gambling Commission in Alderney spends a lot of time with all of our licensees. To echo Pira's comments about collaboration, we spend a lot of time with our licensees, and they collaborate with us, and we have they see us as a source of regulatory assistance. Now, you mentioned that offshore frameworks are undergoing scrutiny in the EU. I mean, that's certainly true, and there are reports related to match fixing as well that mention offshore jurisdictions unfavorably. Our operators, when they operate in Europe, always have a national license. We are a co-regulator. So we have operators with Italian licenses, with Danish licenses. We specifically ensure that our licensees do not offer into any markets where there is national regulation available. But of course, where our licensing becomes advantageous is in pre-regulatory markets, such as Canada, New Zealand, where we work with the regulators there, and they're very happy to have our co-regulation. They recognize that we're a highly regarded supervisor of AML CFT. We do a lot of work to make sure our operators are not owned or influenced by criminal interests, and that their AML and sanctions checking work is of the very highest level. I mean, our regulations are very full and very contemporary, And we apply those, and we apply those on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual inspection basis. So, you know, if the regulator in Ontario is working to license an AGCC approved operator, then they start with a certain sense of reassurance. And we're working with other provincial regulators in Canada in that direction. We've been working to license some operators in the pari-mutuel wagering space, which is, of course, largely the US racing pools, the Hong Kong Jockey Club, the Japan Racing Association. And that's brought us into collaboration with a load of state regulators in the racing states in the US, Kentucky, Florida, North Dakota. So our outreach is considerable in that respect.
Yeah. Aftab, as a global compliance expert, you work with frameworks from Europe to Asia and the Americas. What global best practices do you see emerging from operators who are present in the space? And what pitfalls remain perhaps most persistent?
Thanks, Shirley. It's a great question, and it's being asked almost every time when we are on the panel. Obviously, Benjamin Franklin once said that there are two realities in life. One is called taxes, and there is debt. Now, when I talk to someone, I say there is a third reality as well, and that's compliance.
Compliance, of course.
So you can't live without compliance. And online gaming industry, when we talk about it, the ecosystem, whether you're talking to regulator, we're talking to a payment processor, you're talking to third parties, there is compliance, is the center of the universe. So compliance is something which is needed. And if you are working in one jurisdiction or you're working in 50 jurisdictions, by the way, we're operating in 58 jurisdictions, and we understand the pain operators have to face. But the reality of life is that compliance is not going to be less. It will even increase. Compliance is something. So what we suggest, or what good regulators or operators are adopting, is the model where the compliance by design.
Yes.
Because one thing is very important, that intent is not changing. We still need the player security. We need the AML. We need KYC. We need, I'm talking of online gaming perspective.
Yes.
So we need those basic elements, that it should be, integrity should be there, and so on. So that means that doesn't matter what compliance, what standard we're talking about, intent is same. So if someone is designing a product and they have compliance by design, instead of they're fitting the compliance afterwards, then that is the best way, which is very important. And we have seen this in the industry, that this is being utilized. That you don't look at in a piecemeal, you look at the holistic view of compliance, what is needed and why it is needed, and make it a part of the business you have to. But now the second part of your question was about the pitfalls. So obviously, this is something which I have already said can only be seen by those who have a vision and they look at the long-term perspective. Otherwise, the time to market is very important for the operators. And what they try to do is, what is required for Malta, I'll do that. What is required for Alderney, I'll do that, and don't worry about anything else. Which is good, it works very well, but that is for the shorter duration.
Yeah.
But when they have to change it for other jurisdictions which are which have more requirements, then it becomes very difficult.
Yeah.
So I think I would say that compliance as a holistic view is extremely important for anyone who wants to run any business, and especially online gaming business. Because previously we were talking of KYC, we're talking of AML, now we're talking of privacy. And privacy in Europe is different, it's GDPR. In California, it will be very different. As opposed to Australia, it will be very different. So we need to think of that way, and that's probably the best way to move forward.
Yeah. Well, covering 58 jurisdictions, I cannot imagine the size of your compliance department in trying to keep up with all the different regulations is an incredible feat on its own.
You're absolutely right. Actually, I missed one point here, that this is not static.
Of course.
It's all changing.
Exactly.
So tomorrow,
constantly,
any jurisdiction can say, I'm changing this environment.
Yeah, constantly. I would like to open this to the panel. Let's talk a bit about innovation, competition, and also enforcement trends. We haven't talked about the newer technologies. Well, maybe not so new anymore, but emerging technologies such as AI, blockchain, real-time monitoring. How are they changing? Let's continue on compliance, the compliance equation, both for regulators and the industry. Who would like to take this question? Paris?
Yes. The things are changing very fast. What I said before, if we don't follow, then you lose the game. However, it's a cliche to say that think out of the box. Before we think out of the box, let's explore the box. The previous panels, they say that they have the technology. So let's explore the technology that we are currently having and allow, through the regulation, the innovation to drive. That's how it works. When you don't have regulation, you have chaos. And when you have chaos, you have anarchy. And when you have anarchy, you have problems. So if you have a proper regulation that is being drafted together with all the stakeholders, then you are allowed the innovation to explore. In every industry, innovation is like Formula One. We have the regulation, but we need laps. Every lap is heading faster and faster. So the gaming is the same. The gambling, the gaming industry is the same thing. Things are changing. The people now are not only 25 years old. They are coming from 12, 13 years old, addicted to gambling. That's a problem. And technology, with the AI and all the data-driven software that we have, they can be explored in a nice way, or exploit the better words, okay? So we can allow them to have the game industry to flourish, because with that industry, we have the people study IT, we have people study hospitality, people that are becoming lawyers, people are becoming promoters, and so on. So it's not only an isolated, it's a global issue. So let's use the technology in a nice sense in order to allow the innovation. And innovation is not something that we have to be feared. What we are here is because of the innovations.
Yeah. John?
I have a simple rule of thumb when it comes to technology, which is if I know how it works, then everybody knows how it works. And to take an example, when it comes to even I can use a VPN these days if I want to access gambling products in the illegal market. But I think I'd just make a simple point, which is that AML, safer gambling, customer protection, they're integral parts of any gambling business these days. If you're looking at the success and sustainability of the industry into the future, they touch on all parts of the business. Therefore, you should be using the technology that's available to improve your offering in safer gambling, AML, and customer protection in just the same way as they're using it in your marketing department and to design your new games. It's all integral, it's all joined up. There isn't, safer gambling and AML doesn't belong as a separate adjunct to your business where you go and see the one guy working down in the compliance department when you've got 300 people on marketing. It doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah. And I think, yep.
I think I'll add to this that basically technology, it is inevitable. We'll be using technology, we'll be using AI, we'll be using blockchain, and all of this. And it goes to in my view, because I'm seeing this industry for the last 25 years, and I think online gaming industry is the most advanced industry for a simple reason, because they adopt quite a new technology for a very simple reason. They've got money and they've got liberty. They want to provide entertainment and they want to use the latest technology. Timing, latency is all of these issues. Geolocation is their issue. You think of any problem and it will come into online gaming.
Yeah.
What AI has done, that AI is, by the way, something not very new. People are talking of automation as AI, which is very, sometimes very strange to me. But the advantage is that we have got fast computers now. If you're talking 20 years ago, it's very different. I happened to be working in neural network models in 1993. So when I talk about machine learning and we talk about LLMs and all of those things, these are really not new Why these are very effective now? Because we have got machines which are very fast.
Yeah.
We can get the results in less time as opposed to in hours and days we used to get. So AI is very well used in the industry, and obviously, and automation is being done as well on AML front, like you said, John, and KYC, and so this becomes very important. But what I see that the adoption to the regulator is more important about these areas.
Yes.
And understanding that if we are using AI in any of the systems, then we need to have a different set of controls. You see, at this point in time, we talk about random number generator. We have got a standard that how to test it, game fairness, how to test it. So government's job or regulator's job is to protect the vulnerable. Now, if there are systems which are being employed as AI-driven, then are we thinking that those needs to be regulated? Those needs to be tested? We need to look at the transparency. We look at the data integrity. We look at the how these are being used. Are they manipulating the mindset of people who are using it, and so on? So in my view, technology is inevitable, like I said, and will be used more and more. What we need to do, we need to be trained to understand that how to evaluate those AI systems.
Yes.
And I think Europeans have done a great job. EU AI directive was one of them, which was pretty important for to make sure that AI systems are regulated and transparent. Similarly, ISO 42001 is being adopted quite a lot. We do certify systems for ISO 42001, and those are for use for AI. So I think these are the modern trends which will be adopted. So
Yeah.
that's my.
I think when we talk about innovation, the way I see it is a bit like a race. You said the industry adopts early because there is the money. But it's not just the operators. What about the regulators? Yes. Can they keep up? And it's not just the operators, but also if we distinguish between the white operators and the black market operators, they also have the money. So this is a constant race. Pieris mentioned that the players are getting younger and younger. And the younger the players get, the more open to innovation they are. So I really do see this as a race. Andrew?
Yeah, I think to pick up on John's point about AML CFT, for example, we're seeing some instances where at a player verification stage, AI is being used to animate a still image into a video clip, which can be used to open an account. That sort of level of subversion of the customer onboarding process is something that we need our operators to be fully aware of in their risk assessments. AI can have many positive uses on the responsible gambling side, but it can also be a threat in the sense of there are AML and CFT breaches which can be assisted by AI. So we're in regular contact with our operators. Each of them have different business models, different types of player, VIPs or mass market. But nevertheless, we need them to have a full awareness of the role AI is playing in their risk profile.
Yeah. When it comes to innovation, has regulatory pressure had a positive impact on innovation, or is it a hindrance in your particular jurisdictions? And of course, in your case, you can talk about whichever jurisdiction you choose to, right? John?
Well, I'm quite happy to give a lot of credit to the Gambling Commission in Great Britain for the raising of standards in AML and safer gambling and customer protection over the last 10 years. They applied a lot of pressure, and I think industry responded very well. And as I said at the beginning, I think we're seeing far fewer egregious cases now. And generally speaking, operators, when they're dealing with the Commission, are focusing on the more difficult, nuanced issues, like how do we have meaningful customer interactions with our players in real time. Difficult questions that the regulator will go into one operator and assess them, and they might hear something in that about what one operator is doing, and then they might move on to the next operator and say, why aren't you doing this? And they have driven up standards, but we're now in a place where I feel that we can stand by what operators are doing in the UK, and the standards are excellent. There will always be exceptions, there will always be failings, but on the whole, we're at a very high level.
Yeah, and that is very positive. Would anyone? Yes, Pieris?
Yes. First of all, we have to change the mindset. The mindset comes from actions. And as a regulators or as a people that we safeguard the gaming industry, what we have to do is to come across the speed of change. And this is very crucial. We don't need to stack behind the office and just say this is the regulation. At the same time, the operators, they have to come and understand that the regulation is there to help them. And also the players, the regulation will help them in case that something goes wrong.
Yes.
You know, just something goes wrong, it goes only once. Millions of flights, but only once. And then we can see the consequence in every industry. So if something goes wrong, either in the black market, that is the illegal online, or the legal, again, then we have to have this open mind that we have to listen. If we don't listen to the operators, and the operators listen to the regulators, then have a serious issue. The bigger issue, the bigger picture is about all the regulators to have the same language. Not in jurisdiction, even very close to each other, to have different, and then an operator that operates in the same, in the different jurisdictions say, oh, in this one happened this, in this happened this, that decide what you have to do. So, and this is the effort of the regulator is to have a common understanding. As a common understanding, they have the operator. We
Yes.
don't want to miss, and we don't want to lose the excitement of gaming. This
Yes.
is a different story,
Yes,
yeah?
yes.
So we need to be at the same pace. At the same time, we have to be safeguard the players, because at the end of the day, is the players, and my contribution, if you want, is to be proactive than reactive.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would just like to make one comment here. It's true that we're talking about innovation, AI, blockchain, but what I take from what you just said, Pierre, is that it boils down to trust. It boils down to trust. Yes, please.
I think you just stole what I wanted to say, basically.
My apologies.
So innovation is, basically the problem is that the pace of innovation is quite fast.
Yes.
You know, we go very fast in terms of, because of the advancement in technology and requirement and the needs for the entertainment industry, especially. For example, if I talk about the banking sector, it will be very slow. You know, they're very cautious. They want to try things
Yes.
after everyone has tried, that they will take the risk-based approach. So here the challenge is, again, the regulators have the right mindset that they will take time to make some decisions.
Yes.
And again, the basic principles are applied whenever a new technology comes in. That means protect the vulnerable, make sure that, you know, that the segment of public which is not exploited, so on, so on, so on. Player protection, etc. So if we want to do that, then that means the regulation will be behind innovation. And this is the main challenge. And that's why we're seeing that in US there are some games, and especially we were talking about crash game before, that some of the regulators are very reluctant that, you know, how does it work and how does it find. And so I think this is where the gap is. So we need to make sure that regulators are up to speed with the new advancements. And I think it will be a role of the industry and these forums like this, that we talk about the new technology, we talk about the challenges and risk associated to that technology. And most importantly, we apply risk-based approach. So if we are coming with new innovation, you need to come up with a statement of claim that this is the innovation, like I said about AI. This is the system, these are the risks, and this is how we have addressed it. Now it is acceptable. Then it will be more acceptable to the regulator and the industry.
Yeah. John and then Andrew.
I was just going to say I'm getting a little bit of a sense of deja vu because I was speaking at a conference, a Sigma conference in Malta last year, and I thought, oh, the room's filling up nicely. It's all word must be spreading that it's a really great panel, and and as the room was full to bursting at the end, in walked two UFC fighters for a weigh-in, and knowing that a UFC fighter is arriving in 10 minutes as the clock counts down, I'm getting that feeling again. I would say one of the reasons that I'm not great on technology is that in the UK we don't have a crypto casino, which will be a disappointment to many of the people in the halls.
Or perhaps an opportunity to explore.
Yeah, not yet. I mean, I think the Gambling Commission is not ready to license a crypto casino. They haven't worked their way through the issues. But that day, it is coming, and it's coming because there's a demographic that is using crypto, more comfortable with it, and also it's being heavily supplied in the illegal market. And if you've got a product that is being used by many of your citizens, you want to be providing it in a regulated and taxed and compliant way. So that day is moving forward, but I don't think it's still maybe a year or two away. And the Commission, I think rightly, is saying it's not for us, the little old Commission. We're actually quite a small regulator in the overall scheme of things, although they dominate our industry. It's for government and others to try and work out some of these issues for us before we start licensing. It's not for the Gambling Commission to lead the charge.
Yeah. Andrew?
Yeah, that was very much Andrew. Andrew Rhodes' point at the International Association of Gaming Regulators conference 2 weeks ago. He said it's not a crypto is not a gaming regulator's problem. It's a government problem. But insofar as we are a smaller jurisdiction and a somewhat more flexible and nimble one, we're working with the government in Guernsey. There's nothing in our ordinances, our gambling ordinances now, that prevent our operators using crypto deposit mechanisms. They just have to be regulated ones. So we're working with the Guernsey Financial Services Commission to get crypto payment providers licensed in Guernsey. We're working actually on a Moneyval working group on the uses of virtual asset platforms in the laundering of criminal funds, and we're also working on the FATF's risks, methods, and trends group. Get that right? On the gaming and gambling sector, in which crypto will be certainly a large part of the area that's being considered in that group, and those recommendations will inform the shape of the next round of FATF and Moneyval evaluations of gaming regulators. So there are things we can do right now rather than sitting back and saying it's for the government. We are doing what we can. We certainly we're working on a national risk assessment for Guernsey with regard to virtual assets, and we've recently, unsurprisingly, the response when we polled all of our licensees on their attitudes towards crypto adoption was very, very positive. They wanted to have permitted means of utilizing crypto in their operations, and we are feeding that back into the national risk assessment in Guernsey. We hope it will be a positive outcome.
Yeah. So this panel has hinted at players who, let's face it, I don't think their priority when they go to a casino or whether they're playing online, I fear that their priority is not being totally protected, okay? Maybe in some jurisdictions more than others, but they're certainly there for the entertainment. The operators, Pierre hinted at something, and there was a very interesting panel yesterday. Operators are looking to keep that spirit of iGaming alive. And then you have the regulators who, of course, have different priorities. Now, do we see, let's talk about the US, for example, where more and more markets are warming up to gaming, whether it's land-based or online. We see the same thing in Europe. Do you think this is leading to more harmonization, or will this lead to more fragmentation, which Paris was hinting at before? Regulators should be speaking more of a common language. But how realistic is this?
Well, although I'm Irish, so I'm not speaking personally, but when Great Britain was in the EU never managed to harmonize gambling in all its existence. And things are happening in the States. There's liberalization.
Yeah.
You see the same journey happening in almost every jurisdiction. And in the States, they'll see it happening state by state. They'll see the same mistakes made, the same successes made, the same backlash. A common problem is that when there's a lot of advertising, people associate it with a proliferation of online gambling rather than a fight for market share.
Yeah.
And you see all the same things happen over and over again. So, and there are cultural differences, there are different business priorities. Some jurisdictions are looking to attract investment, employment, raise taxes. The UK isn't trying to do that. I have clients come and see us and say, but we've got a great product. This will mean jobs. This will mean tax revenues. I said the UK Commission isn't interested in that. So there'll be other jurisdictions where that will be much. Ultimately, all regulators, well, nearly all regulators have at their heart prevention of crime, protection of the vulnerable, and fairness and openness. But for some business priorities, investment will weigh more heavily.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that I agree with you, John, what you said. However, I still believe that there is harmonization in intent.
In intent, yes.
Yes, even though it is, we need to be on positive side, So the way this is practiced, it is different.
Yes.
And again, as I said in my opening statement, that the reality is that we need to understand the intent of the requirements and what they require. And if we follow that, then there will be minute or there will be little customization from one jurisdiction to another. However, we can do the common requirements, which we do, or for example, for our clients, that if they comply to this set of requirements, that means they will be okay for 15 jurisdictions.
Yes.
By the way,
So like a baseline of requirements.
That in IAGR, International Association of Gaming Regulators, few years ago, they started the process where it was Alderney, by the way, Alderney, United Kingdom, Denmark, and I think Gibraltar. They wanted to have a common framework for random number generator. And we helped them writing it. Still, it is found on their website. Nobody's using it. I don't know why. But we did that work, and we know that it was well accepted by everyone, and they said it's a brilliant piece of work, and it exists.
Yeah. Andrew.
I totally agree with that. There's an awful lot of lip service paid to regulator cooperation. But equally, you go to something like an Niagara conference, and you realize what speed of development a lot of different emerging markets are at, and actually the ability to implement these positive changes of collaboration are somewhat limited by that sheer spectrum of knowledge. But I mean, you mentioned the US, and I think that's a really fascinating situation. We've never had a situation, I think, since public gaming was legalized in the United States in the 1960s, where the state model of regulation has been under such threat. You have the proliferation of prediction markets and sweeps markets now, which are undercutting the state's ability to regulate themselves. I mean, we see states having some success in outlawing sweepstakes in California, for example, recently, but it seems very evident now that with the ascendancy of prediction markets, Kalshi and so on, poly markets, and their ability to get some kind of regulatory coverage from the federal authorities, from the CFTC, that allows them to offer sports betting in all 50 states. There's really no restriction, and it puts them at an incredible advantage. It's no surprise that the FanDuels of the world are getting involved in partnerships with prediction markets. And I think prediction markets bring the gambling sector into an intersection with the financial markets, which allows a sort of depth of liquidity and a depth of actually investor interest that they've never really had before. And I think you're going to see the financial markets resembling the gambling markets a lot more, and the gambling markets resembling financial markets a lot more. That's going to be an absolutely epochal change in the way gambling is undertaken. 20 years ago in the US, in the UK, we had Betfair. That was a prediction market of sorts, but it never had the liquidity that the financial system in the United States is offering Kalshi, for instance. So, we are looking at a transformative change in that market, and I'm very, very interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's say, I agree with all the panelists, but let's say we have a regulation. I think everybody will interpret the regulation differently, and is going to implement or apply the regulation differently. So this is a common understanding, because whatever we are doing always will be other side of the coin.
Of course.
So what we have to do is, if we put the players as a core of any decisions or any regulation needs to take place, with all the characteristics, demographics are changing, cultural differences and so on, it's about preventing to become addicted. We have to stick in the issue of entertainment. We have to maintain the gambling industry of something that let's go and enjoy. So, and then we can tackle the big issue about the people that they are addicted and so on. So let's focus on the responsible game, allow them to play on the safe game and so on. So I think the kickboxing is coming now.
Yeah.
Because the time is going.
Yes,
so that's
exactly.
It.
All of a sudden, we're feeling the pressure. But just before we close, in a word or phrase, what is the trend or event that you are most looking forward to in 2026?
I can't do it in a word, but the illegal market is what I'm looking out for. I've been in this industry for 27 years, and I would stand by this industry. It's taxed to the hilt. The laws are fit for the digital age. We balance consumer freedom and protection, and we're on a continuous journey of improvement, and we need to crack down on the illegal market, which is threatening those that are providing those high standards.
Precisely. Aftab?
To me, 26 will see that compliance is not checkbox, ticking the a checkbox or list. It will be a continuous compliance. Regulators, I think, will come to that stage that they won't look at the reports, they will look at dashboards, and it's a real-time data. So I think that it will be data-driven, and it will be AI-focused. So a different set of controls will be required.
Thank you. Andrew?
I think I'd pick up on the crypto adoption point from earlier on and say that's probably going to be the trend of the next 12 months. What looked like it was 5 or 10 years away last year is probably more like 9 or 12 months away now. And we need to accelerate our progress as regulators towards finding ways of incorporating crypto into our regulation. The Financial Action Task Force very clearly in June this year said it's not sufficient now for a jurisdiction to say crypto activity is prohibited. You've got to find a better way of explaining what's going on because crypto is there, and you've got to find a better way of explaining how you're going to regulate it.
My comments, it's regulation not for control, but regulation for safe gaming and safe entertainment.
Yes. And I would say a sustainable ecosystem is the underlying message that I have captured from what you've been saying. Once again, I would like to thank you for the privilege of moderating a panel with such guests as yourself. So it's been my complete pleasure. The afternoon continues. I think we'd better get off the stage. I wouldn't like to be in the way of anyone, let alone a UFC fighter. So thank you very much for your attention. If you would like to speak to any of our panelists, we'll be off stage very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Shirley.